Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to build a ReactJS application from scratch. So ReactJS is a simple JavaScript library for building user interfaces, which is primarily developed by Facebook and the community. Okay, so in order to get started, you need to install Node.js on your machine. Um, then you can install it for Mac or your desktop or your Windows PC or your Linux PC. So everything is available in the website. And here I'm going to use my text editor as Visual Studio Code, which I feel it's really good compared to other text editors. There's a lot of features. Okay. So I'm gonna get started with uh, so I just create I just opened a project. I just created a folder. So now let's see how can we get started with create react app. So here for this demo I'll be using create react app as the boilerplate code generator, so that I'll be able to I don't have to go and create each and every files. So this will create the minimal project to get started. So I'm just gonna start here. So this part is mainly your application name. So here I'm gonna give React training. Cool. So as you can see, this will basically set up the project, and it will install the dependencies as well. So for this particular basic project or the minimal project, it uses React, React DOM, and React scripts. These all are npm libraries which is gonna get installed along with that. So while it gets installed, so let's go and see what exactly the main concepts of React. It's getting installed. Okay, so this is one of the basic React application which I can see. So here you can see React DOM is rendering an element from the HTML file. So this is the ID of that particular HTML item, and it gets, so this will find the item, and this React.js application is gonna get rendered onto this particular space. So let's okay, cool. So now I'm using Code Insiders. So this is one of the beta version kind of application for VS Code. So I'll just open it. Okay, now you can see these all files are getting created by the boilerplate code generator. So now you can see that this is, as you can see, any web application it uses, uh, it will have a public folder, and it will have the basic HTML file which is basically gonna served from this public folder. So here you can see we have a div with id root. Okay, so if you go to our index.js, this, as I mentioned, this is finding this particular ID, and our entire application is imported from here, and it is going to get rendered onto this particular ID or DOM element. So whenever this application starts rendering, here is where our entire React application is gonna get added. So in fact, if I have a div, or if I have an h tag like this, and if it is coming from React, so whenever it is gonna rendered onto a browser, this is how it is gonna look like. Okay, so let's go back. So let's try to run this npm start. Since all the libraries are installed, okay, now I can close this. Okay, as you can see that this has started a development server in port 3000, and this is giving the instructions how to do this. And here if you go edit src app.js and save to reload. So this is one of the interesting thing in React. So this supports hot reload. So as I'm going to app.js, and I'm just gonna delete this, and here I'm putting training. Okay, I just saved, just flashed. Even without reloading the page, it automatically uh, reloaded this application. So I'll just show you in. So I just remove this flashed here. So it makes the development faster. So now let's dig into few of the important uh, logics, few of the important concepts in React.js. So the one of the main concepts, one of the main building block of a React.js application is a component. So a component is nothing but a building block of a React.js application. So it's all up to the developer how to make the components and how to structure the application. But if I take an example of this particular site, I can make this entire thing as a component, or even I can make this heading as a component, and I can make this as a separate component. So basically you don't have to write everything in a single file. Basically you'll be writing each and everything in separate files, which you can import it and directly use it. And another thing about the component, it is component is you'll be able to customize it uh, in different ways. So let's go to the documentation and main concepts. I'll try to finish this for now. Okay, let's get started. Introduction to JSX. So JSX is the way we are writing the code here. So as you can see here, this part is JavaScript, and inside the JavaScript we are writing the markup language, or it's more like HTML, but you'll be able to write the components inside this. So basically JSX is nothing but writing the React rendering part within the JavaScript. Okay, so this is one of the basic JSX elements. So if I have something like this, I will be able to put it here, and I am just making it capital so that element, just saved it. Okay, got an error. Okay, okay, so I have made a mistake here. So if you want to make it as a if you want to render a JSX element within the React tag, our React render function. So this is basically, I am converting this into a functional component, so which will return this instead of using it. So since I am using it as a component, I have to return something, or it should be a function which will return a JSX item, JSX element, or even a React component. Okay, so here you can see this app, the one which you're using here is a functional component. So the example which you're seeing in the React demo here, so this is a class component. So this is more like, the oops concept. You'll have a class which is extending to a component which has the features of a React component, so that you'll be able to override render function, and you can use constructor, you can use the lifecycle methods, which will be explaining the next. So yeah, so this is one of the lifecycle methods. So for example, if I take this is gonna get called uh, you know right after calling this render function. So there is a lifecycle method which is going to execute as a sequence. We'll come to that. So we have successfully created one component, and okay, let's talk about a class component. So I'm just gonna create. Yeah, I'll just copy this. I create a folder, components. Let's create a file. Hello message JSX. Okay, now I have to import a few stuffs. So, React, React backend. Okay, cool. So export default. So there's nothing but the oops concept. I'm just making sure that class, the one which I created, is getting exported, so that I'll be able to use instead of this. For example, I can import hello message from components. Hello message. This component is getting imported here. I'm just formatting it. Okay, got something. Okay, so now you can see this hello is coming from the component. Now let's talk about the props here. So here this example was showing how to use the props. So here if you look, this is the way which we are passing a data onto a particular component. So a component is made to make it configurable, and make it dynamic, so that if you have a card, or if you have a name card, let's say, or if you have a list item, so you'll be creating a component like this, and basically if you have an array, so you'll be passing each item as like this, or sometimes this can be put inside a map or a folder, so that the list will be rendered with all different names. It's cool, right? So let's see. So the prop which is used here is name. So I'm gonna show you to use it. So it shows hello Suraj. In the same component I'm using here, uh, I'll put another name, Tom, and so this is how a property is getting passed on to a component. So another thing is about state. So I'm gonna talk about state. So let me think about a scenario which I can implement here. I'll create just another component. So I'm just copy pasting this. state example. Okay, now I can rename this state example. So in order to select the same word, so that I don't have to type these two, so I have selected this word and then I pressed command D, or if you're using a Windows machine you can use control D. So basically you'll be getting two cursors and you'll be able to type simultaneously. So this is a interesting feature on VS Code. Okay, so I'm not using properties anymore. Okay, instead of that I'll remove this state. Like what I'll do. Okay, loading. Let's think about a scenario where this particular thing is calling an API, or it's making a network call. So till that time we have to show loading. So two things is what I'm gonna show you here. One is the lifecycle methods. So if you go here and main concepts and string elements, this we have discussed, components and props. So props is what we have discussed just now, and okay, this is something similar which we have discussed. Okay, let's go to state and lifecycle, which I was talking about. So state is something like the memory, or yeah, you can think about a memory which is limited within that particular component. So state which you are so you'll be able to store a piece of information, or a piece of which is particular for that particular component, and you will be able to use within this particular component only. And if you want to pass it on to a child, you can use it just like this, so that the data will get propagated to the child component. But the state is something dynamic. So whenever the state changes, this component will get re-rendered. Similarly, whenever the prop changes, the component will get re-rendered. That's the basic flow of React. Um, okay, let's create something. So props. Sorry. Okay, this dot state is equal to loading. Let's say this is okay. So basically whenever the component get mounted for the first time, let's assume that this is in the loading state, and we need a data. So here the difference which I'm gonna make is, let's assume that this name is gonna come from an API. So I'm not making an API call for now. I'll mock the data, but let's assume that there is something related to the time which is happening. So the component gets mounted rendered for the first time, this will have nothing, or it will just show loading, and right after that this will show the name. Okay, so let's put two memory units, basically the states. Name is equal to undefined for the time being. Okay, initially there will not be any name. So okay, so now the interesting thing, the component lifecycle method which I'm going to show is, so this is showing me the suggestions with all these things. Good. So component did mount is the one which I'm gonna use it here. So this will get called right after entering this. Okay, so this will get called only for the first time whenever it is getting rendered for. So if you have a component and if you want to make an API call, so the basic structure, and if you're using the pure React, you'll be able to use it from here. Okay, so I'm gonna use a set timeout, as I'm not using any APIs for this, I'm just mimicking, or I'm just putting a timeout so that user will get a feeling that something is happening after 2 seconds. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, so right after 2 seconds, I can call a function. I can set the state directly. So let's say, so this is the basic way to set the state. So if it is a constructor, you'll be able to directly mutate, but it's always preferred, anytime if you're changing, it's not preferred, you should use like this, otherwise you'll end up having a lot of bugs in your application. So this is a function call which will make sure that the state is getting changed, uh, like this. So also, if you have any dependencies on the current state, so you will be able to use like this. Then you can make the changes. So basically this will have the previous state, and if you have a counter kind of a thing, you'll be able to get the value of the current state from this, and you can do the operations here. Then you can return the value. That returned value will go back and set into the state. Okay, so here I'm gonna set a normal state because I don't have any dependencies on the previous state. So all that I'm going to do is, so loading is equal to false, and name, let's say Tom. Okay, so basically this will ensure that after 2 seconds state is going to change. Okay, so here also I have to make some changes. So there is an interesting thing in ES6, so you'll be able to use ternary conditions. Hope so. If you're not familiar with this syntax, um, operator in ReactJS, you'll be able to read it. Okay, so you can read it yourself. It's a ES6 feature. So I'm going to use it here. So if it is loading, just return uh, loading. Okay, now if else condition, you can write it after calling, and here I'm gonna write hello. um, I'm gonna use that other syntax. This will make sure I'll be able to use JavaScript also within this. So this dot state dot name, just formatted the code. So okay, just okay, I'm not using this component, so I can, okay, state example, state example. So I'll put the state example right after this learn React to identify what exactly we have changed. So there is no need of any props. It's my keyboard. Okay, used it here. Okay, we got super constructor. Okay, I forgot to call super props here. Okay, super set that props. Okay, let's see. Okay, so basically this is an oops concept. So whenever you're creating, so whenever you're constructing something, it's basically ensuring that Okay, we didn't see the change, but let's see. You can see that loading is coming, and right after 2 seconds the data is changed to hello Tom. So I can put a space here. So hello Tom. So this is the basic component structure, and here we have used a class component, and here in the app it is a functional component, as it is not having a class because it's not having any state, or it is not having any complex data processing or any such things. So this is one of the basic concepts about, or this is the uh, uh, state, props, and the life cycle methods. These are the basic concepts of React. So you can see that component did mount is fetch post will make sure that the data is getting from the server and it is sitting back to the state, just like we did here. Okay, it's the same. And one more thing which I can show you is so I will just create a functional component as well. Functional component demo.jsx import react from react. Okay, now I can say export first I'll create a component const export directly from this export default. Okay, so I'm using a so this is one of the best library, one of the library which will make sure that your task really useful. So if you have a library here, you can there is an extension which will generate this code which you can give it a try. So you don't have to try the entire you don't have to type the entire thing. It will just create the functional component. If you type fc react functional component, and if you want create a react functional component with ES7 like that. Okay, so basically these two things are same, so anything which you can use. Just deleted one. This was something I'm just making into new syntax. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a test here just to make sure that the component is working fine. Let's go back to app. Okay, now h1 react fc. Okay, now fc demo. So there is another extension which will make sure your imports are automatically done in VS Code. So we'll try that. Okay, cool. This automatically get imported. So now it's this keyboard. Okay, now I'm saving this. C demo is not defined. Oh, okay, cool. So now you can see this FC demo test is coming here. So the next thing is, if you have a functional component, how to pass the props, because from React 16 most of the default states and the components are getting migrated to the functional components, and let's try that out also. So if I want to accept props, okay, I can just put like this, and instead of this test, props dot name. Okay, now I just saved it. Here I'm not gonna get anything, but let's see, name is equal to Tom, or let's make Harry. Okay, here I forgot there is no context, so I'll not be able to use this. So Harry came. So this is the main concept of passing the props and state for a particular component. So we have talked about a class component and a functional component, how to pass the data from one component to another component, as you can see here. And we have talked about the state in a component. So yep, we'll talk about the life cycle method and how to leverage the property functionality in a real life application in the next video. Thank you for watching.